What happens if you press the calculator button in different OSs? Some keyboards have a calculator button. Windows XP to Windows 7. It opens the calculator. Windows 8.1 has two calculators, the desktop calculator and the Metro calculator. Pressing the calculator button always brings up the desktop calculator, regardless of whether you are currently on the desktop or the Metro UI. Windows 10. Windows 10 only has a UWP calculator, there is no Win32 calculator. Pressing the calculator button opens the UWP calculator. It is possible to get the Windows 7 calculator on Windows 10 by installing a program. If you do install the Windows 7 calculator on Windows 10, pressing the calculator button will open the Windows 7 calculator, even though the UWP calculator does still exist. If you then uninstall the Windows 7 calculator, pressing the calculator button will then open the UWP calculator again. What happens if you uninstall the UWP calculator, without ever having installed the Windows 7 calculator, then press the calculator button? It asks you to install a calculator app from the Microsoft Store. It lists both the native Windows 10 calculator as well as third-party calculators. If you install a third-party calculator, pressing the calculator button will then open that calculator. Windows 10 LTSC. Windows 10 LTSC doesn't have UWP apps, so it comes with the Windows 7 calculator. Pressing the calculator button opens the Windows 7 calculator. It is possible to get UWP apps on Windows 10 LTSC by installing a program. What happens if you install the UWP calculator? Pressing the calculator button now opens the UWP calculator, even though the Windows 7 calculator does still exist. If you then uninstall the UWP calculator, pressing the calculator button will then open the Windows 7 calculator again. What happens if I install the Windows 7 calculator on Windows 10 LTSC while the UWP calculator is installed? Pressing the calculator button now brings up the Windows 7 calculator that I just installed. There are now three calculators installed, the UWP calculator, the Windows 7 calculator that it came with, and the Windows 7 calculator that I installed. The Windows 7 calculator that I installed is Win32calc.exe. The Windows 7 calculator that it came with is calc1.exe. The UWP calculator is calcexe. Before I installed the UWP calculator, the Windows 7 calculator that it came with was calcexe, even though it has the UWP icon. In Windows 10, non-LTSC, the UWP calculator is calcexe. Windows Server 2016 and 2019. Windows Server 2016 and 2019 don't have UWP apps, so they come with the Windows 7 calculator. Pressing the calculator button opens the Windows 7 calculator. Windows 11. Like in Windows 10, Windows 11 only has a UWP calculator, there is no Win32 calculator. Pressing the calculator button opens the UWP calculator. If you try to install the Windows 7 calculator on Windows 11, it comes up with an error message. The Windows 7 calculator hasn't installed anywhere on Windows 11. After trying to install the Windows 7 calculator on Windows 11, pressing the calculator button now does nothing. What happens if you uninstall the UWP calculator, without ever having tried to install the Windows 7 calculator, then press the calculator button? It asks you to install a calculator app from the Microsoft Store. It lists both the native Windows 11 calculator as well as third-party calculators. If you install a third-party calculator, pressing the calculator button will then open that calculator. Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Zorin OS, Ubuntu Unity. It opens GNOME Calculator. Ubuntu Mate, Parrot OS. It opens Mate Calculator. KDE Neon. By default, pressing the calculator button does nothing, but KDE Neon doesn't come with a calculator installed. What happens if I install GNOME Calculator? Pressing the calculator button still does nothing, even though I have installed GNOME Calculator. But if I assign the calculator button to open GNOME Calculator, pressing the calculator button will then open GNOME Calculator. Kubuntu. Pressing the calculator button does nothing, even though Kubuntu comes with Kcalc installed by default. But if I assign the calculator button to open Kcalc, pressing the calculator button will then open Calc. Elementary OS. Pressing the calculator button does nothing, even though Elementary OS does have a calculator. MX Linux. Pressing the calculator button does nothing, even though MX Linux comes with calculator installed. Ubuntu 07.10. It opens Calc tool. Chrome OS Flex. It opens the calculator. Mac. Pressing the calculator button does nothing, even though Mac does have a calculator. Android x86. Pressing the calculator button does nothing, even though Android x86 does have a calculator.